All right, showtime. Yes, welcome to the show. We're talking DEFCONtroversy. Palo Alto is in a little bit of hot water, and there's a Durex leak.
He's Mike. I'm Steve. Once again, welcome to Wired In.
Yes, 10 articles, 10 breakdowns, all the wildest news, some pretty great headlines this week as well.
Yep. All the articles, once again, are detailed down below if you're watching now or in the future. And hit the bell to be notified when we go live because we're not always consistent. We do this whenever all the cool stuff happens.
Yeah, it's been a hot summer. We're catching up on a lot of interesting details from DEF CON and Black Hat that happened 3 weeks ago
Very
now.
excited about the show. Yeah, there's a lot of humorous things.
Yeah, so the first one will wrap up some of the best hacks that we saw. There's obviously tons of news articles to go around, but some pretty interesting stuff in here. I know, Steve, you had a few that you liked.
Yeah, I feel we could have almost done a whole show just on this one article. It's got some great stuff. One thing I loved, which isn't necessarily a talk, is that they do this thing called the Pony Awards for like most colossal F-ups in the world. And CrowdStrike's president, Michael Centanus, I think his name is, actually showed up and accepted the most epic fail award.
Yeah, good for them.
On stage. So that's cool. That's just like here. But I loved the EcoVac robots because in any presentation that then shows you a like live video of how they took over a camera on an EcoVac robot is like, oh, I like that. That's real. And how easy it was for them to do. It wasn't just EcoVac robots, it was the lawnmowers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And EcoVac responded with, meh.
No comment.
No comment.
Two very different reactions between CrowdStrike and EcoVac. Yeah, there was some other neat ones. The hackers developed a laser microphone that can hear your keyboard taps. It's an interesting one.
I mean, that's just one, like, okay, that's cool. But then you're like, well, what else can it hear? Can it hear, my bathroom troubles? What?
It does say it has to be within range and see the movements, right?
Oh, okay, that's a laser. So you got to hit it with the laser, right?
Yeah. But if you had no blinds in your house and you're walking through, I could just point a laser and figure out everything you're doing, where you're moving.
Everything you're doing, yeah. We would be a little. I don't know if you can see the laser because it's like I'm just on my keyboard and there's this red dot. Someone's trying to assassinate my laptop. I mean, it would be interesting. I think there was one more I liked in that list, which was the prompt injections to trick Microsoft Copilot. I can't wait. I don't know if all these talks, not all of them have links to the actual talks. And so I am keen to see what that looks like because I don't know. I mean, anything involving these kind of weird AI hacks is interesting to me because I don't know enough about it. That's probably blind.
Yeah, there's also a really good video I'm looking forward to seeing, and that's part of the controversy that happened on stage at DEF CON.
Yeah. There's a lot of content about this one. The DEF CON badge disagreement gets physical. There's a lot. This is actually a pretty comprehensive article on the Register, right? Just to go through, I'm going to zip through and stop here. So every year, if you've been to DEF CON, you know this. If you've not been to DEF CON, you get an electronic badge, and it is super elaborate. One year, a few years ago, it was a musical themed capture the flag. So there's also the song references. You had to play. They had a keyboard on it. It was super cool. I spent too much time on the badge and not enough time in the conference. This year, there was another like Game Boy style system in there, and it was originally supposed to be designed by Entropic. Somewhere along the line, DEF CON said, you know what, stop work, we're not going to use this. And I guess moved the finish somewhere else, but they'd already put a lot of work in and they were a little pissed off. Well, one of the engineers who was going to go on stage and talk about it is, I think his name is Dimitri Grimberg. Oh, anyway, Dimitri, referred to as. At the last minute, they found out, and I went down here, that he had backdoored a little hidden Entropic engineering, hardware designed by Entropic, stolen credit, and this was a Bitcoin address. It's been obfuscated.
Yeah, and it was valid.
That went straight to Entropic, not to him, but straight to Entropic. So donate and he had made it clear, the word got out, he had made it clear that he was going to spread the word about this little Easter egg. And they were afraid he was going to go on stage and do it. And so he was physically removed, and a lot of people saw it.
Yeah, so
they were like, what?
They let him in the conference, but they didn't want him to talk on stage. And then he went up anyways, saying that he wasn't told about it. And there's a lot of back and forth. I will note also, they talked about this in January. It was supposed to be a DEF CON game played on a Game Boy emulator. They didn't have the game done by the set deadline. And in fact, had to manually load all of the DEF CON badges the days before. All the volunteers had to sit there and load up all of the firmware and everything like that so that the badge would run, because they were so delayed. So this was like them scrambling because they also didn't necessarily manage the project correctly. So it's one of those DEF CON's pointing and saying you're not doing your job. They're pointing and saying you didn't give us enough time or resources to get it done.
Yeah.
The usual.
But it was, and there's something goes wrong with the badge almost every year. Like, I think last year the badge didn't even show up. Everybody just got a placeholder.
Okay.
The year with the keyboard, it showed up. It was brilliant. So there's not always a problem.
Yeah, maybe plan a little bit more in advance.
It's a hacker conference.
Yeah. Anyway, so they Dimitri got escorted out and then proceeded to talk basically on the sidewalk. Didn't know if he was allowed back in. He was getting flagged. And a little bit of controversy.
Yeah.
I also didn't know they called them goons, the security for the event.
Oh, yeah. All the volunteers are called goons.
Okay.
It's quite the accolade to be a goon.
All right. All right. On to something that's in your space, your share of the world there. Steve, Unit 42.
Yeah, I did put this in here. Harnessing LLMs for automated Ebola detection. And you're probably thinking it sounds like a disease. No, Ebola is broken object level authorization vulnerabilities in cloud. And just due to the complexity of cloud, it's kind of hard to find these things, So this is some great research by Unit 42, Palo Alto Networks. We'll come to Palo Alto Networks again a little later in the show. Not all things go as well as this. But yeah, understanding endpoint dependency relationships and application logic and being able to find these things is painful manual labor from a both offensive and defensive perspective to find problems and vulnerabilities. They did some great work on some pretty prominent projects, Grafana Harbor, easy appointments, which I didn't expect to see that there. Okay. Yeah, and you can go through and see some of the detail. I love the little table of contents on here, so you can just jump to the end if you want to see what they did for Grafana, no problem. But the conclusion is great, particularly the fact that they point out that this is double-edged sword technology. They're the good guys, and they use this LLM to find these problems, but they pointed out, and maybe too clearly, that you can use this. The baddies could do the exact same thing,
and are probably already actively doing that.
Yeah. So if you're not using AI for your defensive security, maybe get in there.
Yeah, that brings us to the next article. I think you put this in here, using AI for offensive security.
Yeah, this is all right. So I put this in here because it's a good white paper, and I think the cybersecurity world is inundated with claims of white papers that will tell you about this and that. Most of them are marketing. This one is not. This is from the Cloud Security Alliance. If you're not already a member and you love cybersecurity, you probably should be. It'll make you enter your email, and then you'll be a part of their network, and they get their great newsletters. This particular thing, AI for offensive security. I mean, you should just go download it. Timed out. I did download it. I guess your sneak preview is not going to happen. It's great. It's only 21 pages, and it goes through a very blunt and, at a glance, if you printed it out, quite boring looking white paper, but very comprehensive. It was created by, does it say the authors in here? No, there's a German guy, the last name Lundquist. He did a lot of content also at DEF CON and Black Hat, where he talked about AI for security. Very prominent in the industry. So definitely written by the best of the best. So if you're getting into AI for defensive or offensive security, this is a must download.
Yeah. On a related note, we really should differentiate between a white paper and a data sheet, right?
We can. They are very different. I still stand by the fact that a lot of white papers are marketing.
Yeah, but there should be some sort of split in there. Anyways,
Yeah.
we need to figure this out to curb marketing a little bit. All right, on to the last of the general news.
Go for it.
France, and pretty big news. France formally charging Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, and arresting him in France. So he's spending, well, as of this article, 4 days in French police custody and this for the messaging app Telegram. It is really interesting to see what he got charged with. So the Paris court explains, been charged with complicit in storing and distributing child abuse content, facilitating drug trafficking, and facilitating organized fraud and other illegal transactions, refusal to cooperate with the law, criminal association with a view to committing crime, or an offense punishable by 5 or more years of imprisonment, as well as money laundering. And so in the context of the application, it is a peer-to-peer messaging system, but also has servers. So you can create a private chat that is encrypted between two people, and you can also host servers and have a public chat. Now, those servers are not located in France, or they are, but the distribution is such that the French authorities can't get access. And so they went to Telegram and said, we want a backdoor into your system. This is apparently what's going on. And he said no. He said no. And Telegram is designed such that it's very hard for legal entities to go and collect that data, right? Because if you have a server in the US, and the French authorities want it, the US will cooperate. But if you put it in a country that doesn't cooperate with France and you store the data there, then it becomes an issue. And so apparently they've asked him to turn over specific things, or let's say moderate specific content. He's not doing that. They've asked to turn over specific files and conversations between people. He's not doing that either. And so France is pursuing him like he is facilitating a crime, a physical crime. So they're using a different statute, which is very interesting because I don't think I've ever really seen this used in the technical space, like with technology.
The only thing I would say it reminds me of, which is dangerous actually, is the Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road example. He created Silk Road with a darknet marketplace exchange 2011 and was imprisoned for life in 2013 with a very similar list of charges simply because he created the platform. And
if you facilitate the conversation, you can get charged with facilitating.
If you want a precedent, there is one.
Interesting. Is that in the US?
Yeah, that's in the US. Now, this is France. It's very different, but...
Well, they're going after the same thing, and it'll set the standard to go after CEOs and applications moving forward. If you facilitate any sort of crime on your platform, we're going to come after you specifically for facilitating it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do himself any favors, because there was, in that article, it says they asked him for something to do with, like, can you help us out with this in a nicey way, and he just blanked them.
Yeah, it's been his MO. I mean, he did give Putin the finger, so it's nothing new to him.
And he's still alive. Well done.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long he lasts. All right, on to the crazy stuff. Yes, on to some interesting news.
I feel like this is more in your space.
Durex India suffers embarrassing data leak. This is, and not the leak you're thinking of. This is a cybersecurity leak. They don't know the information, but the Durex India was the one that was allegedly hacked, leaking obviously sensitive information. They don't know the impact. There have not been confirmed claims. I think this is mostly for the headline, but you never know.
It's, it doesn't help that an article like this comes out, because they're saying, like, oh, now there can be targeted phishing incidents. And it's like, no, you don't need to be targeted, because if you say that Durex has been compromised in India and you have a society where that could be public embarrassment, you could just scattergun.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I do understand the phishing conversation to say, hey, like, come and reset your password, and you go and you type a password in and then they steal it or something like that. Like, that one makes sense. But I don't think that there's no upside.
No. I mean, they're just some spam bots now just going to send emails to everybody who lives in India saying, oh, we got your data from Durex. And then people are going to go, I didn't ever logged in, and yep. All right, we're just ramping up the controversies here. Let me load this one up.
Yeah, this is in your
Okay.
backyard.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Well, if you didn't hear about this one, you are not on the internet. You don't use LinkedIn. You've never been on X. This one was pretty big. So we've decided to, I don't know, you chose this to use this as our link. Anais Ulrich, she used to be a pretty prominent developer advocate. Now she's like a hands-on developer, but still has a great following on X, etc. And says, absolutely disgusted and disturbed by Palo Alto Networks placing real women. Yes, let's scroll down. Real women with lampshades on their heads. I realize this pose looks like it's not real. They're very realistic, unrealistic people at the entrance to their party venue. WTF? She links to somebody. Was it Jennifer? But actually, the real link was posted. Somebody has it down here. It was actually this guy who first saw it, who was there on the outside. And by the way, the comments are fantastic on it. So we just give our individual hot takes. What do you think about?
Well, I think there's some context here. The whole lampshade on the head thing was supposed to be life of the party kind of thing. It's the person who shows up and gets super drunk and passes out with a lampshade on their head. That's the original intent.
And a lot of people below a certain age don't know that because it is a real 1950s, 60s stupid thing, right?
Yes.
It doesn't happen. And it's not even a reference most people get. So that is already lost. And now
it's a very American reference is also the other thing.
Oh. Yes. Also, though, of course, the problem that it's not dual gendered. They could have had a James Bond.
I was going to say, you put a guy in a suit. I just don't think the controversy is there, right?
No.
But it's Vegas. I do think that I'm not sure who planned this or what happened, right? But you got to think that there's not always the nicest people going to Vegas. And so when you're planning an event, they're just like, oh yeah, we'll put like this in the front, and they have different packages and it just ends up there. And somebody's like, oh, we didn't know we were getting this. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it becomes a controversy. I hope what happened.
I know so much about this.
Okay.
I don't actually work at this is probably the first show I've done where I do not work at Palo Alto Networks anymore. I am now free. So if you have jobs open, this guy's available. So I know the events team are slammed. If you probably have an events team at Red Hat, right?
Yep.
In their favor, when they trying to book a venue for a party is already hard enough. Trying to get people to go is hard enough. You get events people to come in and help you that are contractors, and they present you with a list of cool stuff that you can have. And this isn't something they came up with. This is something that they didn't come up with this.
Yeah.
This is something that's presented as an option. And for the most part, I think it just went, that sounds good. And from there on in, you're planning 3 big events because Palo Alto attends besides Black Hat and has some usually side sponsorships at DEFCON at the same time. It's a monstrous week. And so my understanding is that this was, a thumbnail on a slide somewhere. Like it was, sorry, I glitched there. It was, it wasn't, it should have been caught, but in the crazy, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that Nikesh Arora went online and went, oh my gosh, in hindsight, this looks crazy terrible. But I think what good will come out of this internally is that they did realize, I think we've all
pretty big miss
and looked back and went, that was a big miss. And there was one of the comments is saying this wasn't the first time Palo Alto has done things like this, but I was at an event that Palo Alto did where they had a wall of white gloved hands holding Prosecco. And you weren't at that one.
No,
it was crazy, but it was like an entire wall. And I was looking at it, trying to figure out how can you get so many hands in a grid?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. And I thought, it's not real. And I took a Prosecco and the hand disappeared and came back with a new Prosecco. And I'm like, it's a real hand.
Mm-hmm.
That was weird.
Yeah, there was a comment that said, if there were men, would you mind? Yes, there's no place in a tech conference. I kind of agree. I just think in general, when you're at a conference, I don't like people being used as displays. It just gives me like, I watched too
Yeah.
many horror movies as kids. It just kind of gives me the ick. You know?
It is super scary generally. Yeah, I like to think that I'm like when DevRel used to be involved in events, like I mean not recently, but a year and a half ago, and we would see like what the party was supposed to look like. And I like to think with my happy hat on that I would have looked at this and went, this is not going to go like at a generic Vegas thing with a bunch of dudes, they probably would have got away with it. But at a cloud technology style hacking event, we're a little bit more switched on. This is not good.
Yeah, for sure.
Either way, the idea of getting away with it shouldn't be something that you're saying.
Yeah, okay, so if anybody watching is going to reInvent, I'll be there as well. Keep your head on a swivel.
Keep your head. Let's see what. Yeah,
Yeah, we
see if
need
they have the
another
most
WTF article.
Palo Alto inevitably has a party at every conference. Let's see how unbelievably politically correct the next one is.
Okay. All right. Well, on to our bi-weekly firing.
Yeah.
Cisco employees face a month of silence ahead of the second layoff in 2024. Revenues are down. Net income is down. They did buy a bunch of, well, they bought Splunk. They bought Isovalent, right? So they're building something, just trying to figure out if they're relocating some of their employees and then firing the other half. Not sure what's going on. But if you're in Raleigh, come check out Red Hat. And it's just a big office there. Let me know.
That's funny. You turn it into we're hiring here at Red Hat. Man. It is interesting, right? That's something that we never actually say, and articles don't say, is that it's not like Cisco's not hiring. You've got technologies. I would say Palo Alto is probably the same. Any company that's been around as long as these have, you are decommissioning some tech while building up others. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes sense that you try and transition them over, but you can't transition 4,000 people.
Yeah. And they used to do structured layoffs, right? 20, 30 years ago, it used to be, hey, let's find the people that are the most productive and try to keep them, and let's find the least. And now it's like, hey, you got to move out of this business unit. Otherwise, it's going to be gone in a year. And it's your job to make the transition to get out of it, because they're cutting the entire business unit because it's not profitable. And it's just it's logistically easier. It's legally easier to do. A lot of people complain about these mass layoffs, but it's because of the failure of the other method of laying people off. If you've ever seen somebody go through that whole PIP process, it is tough. I feel for them. All right, we got two more. We got one exploit coming up, and then some serious news to finish off the show. Your local host day. You found this one, Steve.
Sorry, I have to do this comment that just came in. This is about
Keanu money. Yeah, he's all over.
To do with Palo Alto. All right,
Keanu on Instagram.
Yeah. All right. A 0.0.0 day. I thought this was a great pun. Do you want to grab this one and run with it? Because you posted it in, but I think it's a good article.
No, you got
scary too. It's like, so the research team disclosed the vulnerability that. So my understanding, summarizing what it says here, is that I'm on a website, and that people in cybersecurity know this, but people who aren't, who are using a browser, don't realize that you are running an application in the browser that in some instances has access to your computer, but there are a lot of safeguards within the browser to prevent that. But where's the actual, if the application makes a reference to localhost using the 0000 instead of the 127.0.0.1, which normally translates to your computer, it was actually able to succeed to access endpoints that are local to your actual computer. I would also at this point like to point out that I have upgraded my browser.
Yes.
There is no, as normally is the case when I'm talking about some terrible breach, I have not upgraded my Chrome yet. Definitely go do that. But yeah, it's on every browser and only affects Mac OS and Linux for once, and not Windows. Well done, Windows.
Yeah, Windows Defender.
Golf clap.
Doing something correct over there? What's going on?
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, so update your Chrome tabs, or Chrome browsers. And this is, I think, the third show in a row where there's been a Chrome exploit of some sort, or a browser exploit. And with more and more browsers using Chromium underneath, you kind of are going to expect that to happen. It's the perfect target.
It is quite cool. Now, obviously, it's a very complicated attack because you have to decide that, okay, here's a website I know people are are using frequently that isn't currently malicious, and then somehow is part of your phishing attack or some other way. Add some new code in there that takes advantage of this to try and then what? Kind of run an nmap in your local endpoints to see if there's anything even useful. So as much as it sounds really bad, it would be quite elaborate.
It would make a lot more sense for like a government entity to put up some sort of phishing website on the dark web to solicit people to then actively hack their browsers. Like you could see that being the case.
And it have, yeah, and you'd have to know in advance that, okay, all Mac OS of this particular have an endpoint that is available to then allows me to run remote code. Like, I don't know. We haven't seen anything, but watch this space.
All right, wrapping up the show with a kind of crazy one. I hope this one isn't true. Hackers may have stolen every American social security number. Semicolon report. It is a report. They definitely listed that correctly. So apparently in Florida, there's a hack group called US DOD, and they're reportedly trying to sell the data for $3.5 million. They have now posted it for free on an online exchange for stolen personal data. It claims to have 2.9 billion records containing personal data from everyone in the US, UK, and Canada. And yeah, it's not good news. I don't know what you can do to protect your social security number if this is true. Apparently, a wave of identity theft. This is kind of been a long time coming. I mean, when they first really pushed Social Security as the method for authentication, authorization, and all the other services in the US, it was identified as a major risk. So even if this is not true, it's going to be true eventually. I just refuse to admit that it's not going to be a serious target, right? If you can get access to all of those numbers, I mean, cha-ching.
There was a few additional mini WTFs in this one. One, that the place that they hacked was called National Public Data.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it isn't.
Well,
but
it's proper branding.
It's just funny that it's called National Public Data. And you're like, well, why would I hack that if it's already public? But apparently they harbor obviously non-public data. I'm also find it hilarious that they tried to sell it. So why didn't that work? Because nobody cares? Or is it because since Equifax, everybody's number is out there already anyway?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Forgot about that.
I don't know. But I find it fun that hackers put this effort in, succeeded, and then went, all right, how much was it? 3.5 million or something? And just crickets.
Oh yeah, it's free. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Well, here you go. Here now.
Yeah, well, okay. I'll check back in 2 years for the next one.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna keep going for it.
Or the same data gets hacked again and is released. Oh joy.
Yeah, when are they going to get rid of numbers like that for all the authorization?
Yeah.
It is a pain. All right.
All right. Extra long show today. Thank you.
Extra long show. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Make sure you hit the little subscribe bell so you know when we go live. Probably in 2 weeks. You never know. Whenever something cool happens, we'll be back.
like the three amigos. Yeah. 10 articles, 10 breakdowns, wildest news in the cloud native world.
Yes, he's Steve and I'm Mike. See you next time.